welcome to the Creative Constitution podcast. I'm now joined with Andrew Walsh, who's an amazing director and a great filmmaker, and we're going to talk about all things to do related with creating your first feature. Let's do it. Hi, Andrew.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm very well, very well. What would you like to know?
So give me a little bit of background on you.
Background on me? Yeah, sure. I'll do the short version. Basically, I started when I was 17 years old writing scripts, and I did that for quite a few years. Then I migrated from my town to Adelaide, tried to be a filmmaker there. Had a little success, went to Melbourne, and there I wrote, directed, and produced 5 short films. Some are really successful, most were not successful at all. That's alright though, I still enjoyed making them. And after 5 years, I just finished writing and producing my first feature film called How Deep Is the Ocean, which we finished just 2 months ago. Now we're trying to get it out to the world.
Amazing.
And you see, you got the product placement in the background.
Very cool. Yeah, it's a very good poster. So tell me a little bit about your journey as a filmmaker. So you started off with those short films at first. Yeah. So you didn't go straight for a feature. Why did you decide to do that?
Because if I went straight for a feature, I would probably die. It would have killed me because making feature films is very hard. Plus, you need to learn your craft. You know, there's 100 things you need to learn. You need to learn how to deal with actors, cinematography, putting together a story. That can't be done overnight. You know, I mean, that can take years. That can take a lifetime. So, like I said, it was a good transition because I started when I was 17 writing, and I didn't get the opportunity to direct till I was 24. So by then, I had a good grasp of the writing process. I knew how to talk to actors. I knew how to convey what I wanted. So by the time we find the opportunity to get on set, and you know, I was ready to go. I wouldn't say it was easy, but the minute I was there, I knew exactly what to do. It's never easy.
Awesome. And then, you obviously you got to learn how to work with the actors and getting your team together. That can be one of the most challenging parts of filmmaking, getting that really A-class Avengers team. So did you kind of put together that same team that you've been carrying through all the productions?
Not exactly. So the way it worked was with my first film, James Barr, who played the role of the comedian, he was studying at film school. And the problem is these guys found was there was too much theory and not practical. They just wanted to rent out the gear and shoot. So they introduced them to me. I wrote a few scripts by then, and we decided that the comedian would be the best one. It was cheap, it was viable. Then we made another one with that same collective group. And after that, we split, went our separate ways, people on different things. And from then on, I met Ivan Malikan, who's the head of Nexus Production Group. They're a very successful European film collective now here in Melbourne. And it's just been me and Ivan making all our films together up until now.
Yeah, that's great. And then with those short films, so you've made a few now. Did you have much success with those going through festivals? Like, did you use one as a proof of concept for How Deep Is the Ocean?
Well, you know, success is a very broad term, you know.
It is, indeed.
If you want, like, financial success, no, I was not successful at all, but that's okay, I have a real job. No, but my first film, The Comedian, was quite successful. It got played at the short film corner at the Cannes Film Festival, which is really funny, because I have absolutely no idea what I was doing. I'll be honest, we just sent it as a joke, just to take the piss, and then suddenly 3 a.m. we got the email notification. And that started playing everywhere, you know, and then we were screening around Melbourne because there was a thriving underground culture at the time. There's so many gigs. And like we're packing out bars like hundreds of people. You know? And I'm hanging out afterwards and everyone's coming up to me like, you're a genius. And I'm 24 and I'm an idiot and I've got an ego. I'm like, yeah, that's right. I am a genius.
Wow. Well, a lot of filmmakers think that they can't ever get into Cannes or Sundance and all that. Yeah. So that's really great on your part to have. Did you have like a fancy producer on board or anything like that? Just direct submission.
Direct submission. But here's the thing, you know, it looks really good on your resume, but it basically did nothing to change our lives.
Oh, wow.
No one came calling me. No one emailed me. It was pretty funny because when me and James got the notification, we were like, "Yeah, man, we're gonna quit our jobs next week. We're gonna work in the film industry forever. We're gonna do our stuff. We're gonna take over." And those phone calls never came, and I just had to go back to work. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, I was working in a call center at the time, and I got the notification email at 3 a.m. So I rock up, I'm all buzzed, I'm high-fiving people left,
Wow.
right, and center. And then I get on the phone, and literally the first customer I speak to yells at me, and that brought me back to reality.
You're not Christopher Nolan yet.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, wow. Okay, well, that's a very interesting point of view and perspective that you've got from that experience. I mean, so many
Yeah,
filmmakers believe that they'll create, a short film that gets into Sundance and then the rest will be history. They'll be working among the greats and get paid to direct. So it seems like it's really how you make, your opportunities from that point in
exactly.
time.
You have to make your own success. Just believe me, no one else is going to make it for you. No one is going to come to rescue you. No one's going to come bail you out.
Yeah.
As much as we like to think so, there aren't many happy endings in life. That's a harsh one, but it's a true fact.
Sometimes we need those hard truths.
Exactly, and you need to be the hero of your own story, and by doing that, you're getting your own work out there and fighting for it.
Exactly. So let's chat about How Deep is the Ocean.
Sure,
So tell
sure.
me a little bit about the writing at first. Is it something that you've written? Did you get a screenwriter to do it for you? What was the
No,
process there?
well, the process is I write all my stuff. I write all my own stuff. I always have. I don't have anyone from the outside. Um, I didn't. I done 5 short films. A lot of them weren't very successful, as I mentioned, which is kind of disheartening. But at the end of the day, I felt I did everything I set out to do with
Mm.
these 5 short films.
Well,
From
they're
day
stepping
one.
stones, aren't they? Like you learn
Yeah,
from them.
yeah, exactly. And also, you think, oh, if I'm going to throw all this money and time and stress, I might as well go hard or go home and use it for something bigger. So yeah, it was a bit of a strange time in my life because I wasn't particularly looking to be in the industry. I was looking to get out of it. Actually, I was quite disillusioned with my career. I
Okay.
had a few other personal things going on. In fact, you can thank his Airbnb for How Deep Is the Ocean because I was living in a share house and my landlord discovered Airbnb, and then he realized he can make much more money charging Bill $200 a night rather than $200 a week for a house. So we all got thrown out illegally.
Oh my gosh.
But that made me reflect on all the experiences of things happened to me when I migrated to Melbourne on my own without knowing anyone, looking for fame and fortune and all that good stuff. And that formed the basis of how deep is the ocean. Really, it's a story of someone migrating from somewhere else, trying to survive in the city life, ultimately trying to run away from herself, and fails, but she finds a strength she didn't know she had.
Mm.
I mean, we've all got fear. We've all got things we want to run away from.
Yeah.
Believe me, I've got plenty. I was a fear all day.
Yeah, right, exactly. So you wrote all of your previous projects and How Deep is
Yeah,
the Ocean?
I did. How Deep is the Ocean was a bit different because we wanted to improvise. It wasn't a conventional script.
Okay, all right,
So
that's
the way I
interesting.
did it, it was more like a series. So every scene had a beginning, a middle, and end. There was an intention in the scene, but how we navigated it, which direction we went to take that in, that was up to the actors. And by doing that, we actually improvised all the dialogue for all the scenes. It could have gone wrong at any given moment, but somehow it didn't, and the results were great.
That's a very high risk to take in a way. Like that's a
Mm,
huge amount of risk taken with your actors as well. I mean, with so much planning going on for actually creating a
yeah.
movie, that's a very interesting take on creating a feature. So when you were writing the script itself, did you just have the main points that you wanted the characters to come across and kind of
I did,
deliver?
yeah, I did, yeah. But there are some scenes where I might have written specific things, like I think Chris should say this, but Chris, if you want to change that line, it's up to you. But as long as it's still that intention, it's still there. But yeah, it was based on my own experiences, but the characters were very much their own people.
Yeah, right. Okay, cool. And
because
then when you were on set, did you find that that actually made it much more fluid, or like the improvisation part of it?
yeah, oh, absolutely, 100%. And to keep it really exciting, like for example, we'd have roles where the supporting actors wouldn't meet each other till the day, so their interactions would be very fresh and vibrant. And you catch it on the screen. Like for example, we have a scene in the film where the protagonist Eleanor goes to a job interview, which I wrote in the script. The job interview from hell, one of those terrible corporate ones. And she's basically paired up with Simone Ulo, who plays the role of Zoe. And they never met each other till the day.
Wow.
So obviously you're catching something very authentic there when these
Yeah,
people
one
meet for
of
the
the
first time.
risks, exactly. One of the risks when you're doing it from a script is
Yeah,
oftentimes people will have rehearsed it many, many times, and then when it gets to set, sometimes you don't get that freshness that often improvisation gives you.
yeah. Well, the key is to rehearse, but not to rehearse too much. It's a balancing act.
Was that hard to edit, like in the end? Because obviously you won't have the same take and
Hmm.
all the different angles. So what was that like balancing the improv in the post suite?
Well, editing's always hard to begin with, whether improvised or not. One thing we found, which also saved us a lot of money and time, we would do really like wide shots of angles, and you just watch the characters interact and move through the room, say for like 5 to 6 minutes. So that's sort of how we got our way around that. But I mean, for the film, it is there isn't a huge amount of dialogue in it to begin with.
Okay.
So every time a character says something, it makes an impact, but they don't say a lot. And it's like the less they say, the more we're hearing. Because like a big part of the film is the love triangle between the character of Eleanor, played by Olivia Fielders, Matt, played by Will Weverett, and Charlie, played by Adam Rowland, who's now on
Mm.
Home and Away, frolicking on Summer Bay as we speak, probably.
Yeah, right.
And
That's
one
cool.
thing I decided throughout the film, I don't think anyone should actually say that they love each other. You know, because they
That's
did.
nice. That gives a little bit more conflict, does it?
Oh yeah, oh, there's a lot of conflict with that one. But
Yeah.
yeah, less is more at the end of the day.
So was there a big emphasis on cinematography for How Deep is the Ocean? Just making sure that it was a beautiful film?
Oh, of course. Well, I mean, you should always emphasize on cinematography when you're making a film.
Mm.
But yeah, me and cinematographer Scott and Darby Maxwell, the other cinematographer, it was very heavily influenced by European cinema.
Okay.
Things like Andrea Arnold, German director Fateh Kin, the French guys that made a Prophet. I can't remember their name off by heart. But it's an Australian film influenced by European cinema. The camera is very fluid. But
Mm.
at the same time, we've got those really wide shots. The framing's good. The colors are very lively.
Yeah,
So we were doing
nice.
that and using the city of Melbourne as our canvas to tell the story.
So was it an Australian story, Australian accents?
Yes, it's an Australian story. All Australian accents.
It's often hard to create international stories when it's set in Australia. Like oftentimes, like you use the location
Yeah,
because then the buildings kind of all look non-authentic to say like a New York story or whatever. So
yeah.
how is that actually with kind of your strategy for this film in particular? Because we oftentimes, as Australian filmmakers, get told that Australian content doesn't go very well. So this is probably very controversial, but I would love your thoughts on that. Why create an Australian story with Australian accents when it's possibly not very strategically positive for international distribution?
Well, let's be honest here. For a long time, a lot of Australian content has been absolute shit. It's been like that for at least the last 20 years. The standards are so low. The dialogue is bad. The writing is bad. The acting's bad. The directing is bad. And, I don't have anything against those who are making those productions. They work within that system. and they're not given the time and space and money to develop any of those things. But,
Yeah.
it just keeps on going on and on. But on the flip side, a lot of more independent stuff like ours is coming along, which is really surpassing that. And yeah, look, at the end of the day, I grew up in Australia. I don't know any other country, so I'm not going to make a film about New York and make all the buildings look like we're in Brooklyn,
Yeah, that's true. So being more authentic and kind of doing it from your own experience. I mean, that's probably a better way of going about it because then you're telling more true stories, which is all the rage for Screen Queensland and like all of these other big
Yeah.
organizations.
Well, it's everyone's personal choice. For me, that those Australian films, they got the fake American accents. They make me cringe.
Only if the accents are bad.
The accents are very bad. What I've seen, it's just like, oh, just stab me in the ear.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
So
well, I think what's going to help us, go to overseas. It's a very personal story, but it's got universal themes. I mean, everyone's struggled to find their place in the world. Everyone's sort of fallen in love with someone they probably shouldn't fall in love with. And everyone's had to go through those trials and tribulation. It's not just a Melbourne story. That's a worldwide story. It's the triumph of the human spirit over adversity.
that's true. So taking themes that apply to everyone is probably a really great way of getting international interest in the film.
Yeah, well, some people will argue it's a pessimistic view on life, but I'm a pessimistic person by trade. I suppose it probably is.
Mm. So let's chat about funding. So how did you end up funding your first feature? So how deep is the ocean? We don't have to speak numbers, but was it independent funding?
Yep, it's all independent funding. It's all paid out of my own pocket, out of my life savings.
So it's a true passion project.
Yes, I had to work very hard. I was doing security at the time. I still am doing security. That's how I make my money. I was doing like 12-hour shifts, doing night shifts every week. Living very, very frugally in my apartment, not going out much. That saved all the money.
Mm.
But yeah, it was better because that way I didn't have to justify any of my decisions to anyone else.
That's very true.
Whereas if you're in the government system, they've got you by the leash.
Well, same with if you get private investors, you kind of have to all of a sudden have very commercial aspects to your film, and it might just change the way you film it or the locations you use and such.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't do that. This was the story I had to tell. This is the way I had to tell it. If anyone was going to try and obstruct me from doing that, then fucking look out.
That's the way. And then, so you mentioned that the film took you a little bit of time to make from start to finish. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it took 5 years. So I started writing at the end of 2018. We went into pre-production mid-2019. Then COVID happened, and Melbourne became the most locked down city on the entire planet. That threw a bit of a wrench in the plans.
Mm.
Yeah, so as soon as the restrictions were lifted, we would break up the shoot a day here, a day there, and then we finished in March 2021, and then we just finished the edit of 2023.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So it has taken some time. What was the element that probably took the longest?
Oh man, the element that took the longest, I can tell you right now. So we have a final scene where, the character of Eleanor has come to the end of her journey. She's at the train station, and now she needs to move on. And she sees another character she recognized on the platform. And as the train leaves, you can see me, my producer, Dia Taylor, the cinematographer, and my soundy with the boom in a reflection of the microphone, in reflection of the window, sorry. And that took about 8 months to remove, frame by frame. Oh, wow.
That's crazy. That happens, though. I have my personal experiences with that. We were filming one of my films in a kitchen, in a commercial kitchen, and one of the cameras just ended up picking up on the boom mic, being in every single frame. Yeah. Luckily, we had a second camera that we could rely on, but yeah, Oh, when I looked at that, and oftentimes you just can't see it on the little camera screen.
Yeah,
So then you have a little surprise in the editing suite.
yeah, yeah. So doing that took a while. Doing the colors took a while because as I was saying earlier, Australian films, in my opinion, are a very low standard, and I don't put out saying that's a low standard. I want to put something out that is the highest possible standard in terms of the cinematography, the music, the editing. And if you want to do that, unfortunately, there are no shortcuts to doing
Mm.
that. So, yeah.
So, so with the actual quality of it, did you film on red cameras? How did you kind of go about that? Because
Oh,
obviously we hear all about people using phones now to film their films.
man, we did use an iPhone for one part. We shot on five cameras. Give me 1 second, because I got it written down here. Yeah, we used a iPhone for one scene. We used SLRs, and we had it was a black magic camera. I can't remember the exact brand. It was a black magic camera, huge bulky thing, great quality. So we use that to get all the still stuff. Then generally we just use SLRs and red cameras to do more of the handheld sort of fluid shots.
Mm. And with the crew itself,
Mm,
so you mentioned earlier that they're not necessarily the same people that you used in the short films.
yeah.
So how did you end up finding the crew for your feature?
Oh, that was all my producer, Dia Taylor. She is the one who recruited basically everybody, because Dia's been doing this a long time. If you live in Melbourne, everybody knows the name Dia Taylor,
Mm.
because she's been working with that many people. So yeah, 99% of it came from Dia's end of things. I brought on a couple of guys for my short film days, but yeah, no, Dia Taylor, 100%.
Awesome. And was she someone that you got on board because you knew her in the past, or is that someone that you reached out directly to produce your feature?
Um, well, but basically we met. When was it? 2018, because she was shooting a series of interviews about Melbourne directors and releasing it as a web series. And I saw the notice, and they interviewed me at my place. And I said, "Well, I'm going to do a feature soon." And she's like,
Mm.
"Yeah, all right, give me a call when you're ready." 8 months later, "Hey, dear, I'm ready. Let's go."
Awesome.
And we just
And
went from there.
and in order to get her interest, did you have a proof of concept or a pitch deck or anything like that
No, I
prepared?
just showed her the script, and she liked it.
But this if so the script didn't really have all the lines and everything, right? So how did that come across to Dia?
Well, the way it worked was, as I said, it's got an episode structure. So every episode's got the beginning, middle, and the end.
Okay.
And I laid out a few things in there. It's like a chapter. So there's like 15 chapters of the film, almost like a novel. And I think she was excited, as I was, by tackling it with a new approach, this unorthodox way of doing things. And
Yeah.
yeah, look, once you convince these people to embrace it, the sky is the limit.
100%. And with that, that's a great segue to talking about what you'd recommend to young filmmakers that
Sure.
are looking to make their first feature. You've jumped the gun, you've jumped in the deep waters
Yeah,
with How Deep is the Ocean, pun intended.
yeah.
So what would you suggest to young filmmakers that are setting out to make their first feature?
I think the most important thing I would say is that making a feature film is very stressful. It'll be look. I'm a father, and the only thing more stressful than bringing a child into the world was making a feature film.
Wow.
So it's stressful. You need to find ways to cope and manage that stress, healthy ways. You need to communicate with your producer if you're not feeling very well, because it takes a toll on your mental health.
Mm,
And you also really need to take days off, actual days off, to
to reset.
decompress things.
Great.
Otherwise you're going to take that stress and you're going to bring that stress home to your family.
Mm,
And your family don't deserve to be exposed to that kind of stress. So just
yeah.
look after yourself. Firstly, look after yourself. Make sure there's good catering. So there's lots of good food. See, a good crew is a happy and a well-fed crew.
So you don't recommend pizzas?
Oh God, no! I did that for the short films. I'm like, we can't. We need real food. I don't care how much it costs. We're gonna eat real food. So yeah, just do that. Do lots of planning. Like one thing I'm proud of. It was a 13-day shoot, but only once we went past at the 8 hour mark. In fact, sometimes we were done in 4 hours.
That's really good.
Yeah. So
because film sets are notorious for very long hours.
well, man, I just heard lots of horror stories from some of my mates that are on How Deep. You know, I'm talking stories about having to do 20 hour days overtime, never getting paid for said overtime. Other crew members breaking your gear, never being legally compensated for the gear. I'm like, that's not the way I'm gonna run this at all. We're gonna
Yeah.
be well fed, well rested. We're gonna have a good time, and we're gonna clock off after 8 hours.
Awesome. And then how can people find your film? Will it be available online?
Yeah, we're still trying to find a distributor at the moment. Find someone to sell it. I'm in a bit of a pickle. Obviously, I spent all the money to make the film, and now I'm a bit broke. So we're trying to figure out a strategy around that.
Yeah.
But no, just follow our social media on How Deep is the Ocean. How Deep is the Ocean move on Instagram. Hopefully, things will pick up there. I mean, we are engaging sales distributors and all that. It's taking time. Negotiations are taking place.
Amazing. Well, I look forward to hearing more updates, and I'll put all the social channels in the descriptions.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So we've heard a great amount on how to start your first feature, how to get it made, and we hope you'll stick around for the next episode where we get back to chatting to Andrew all about distribution and getting your work out there. This was Creative Constitution, and we'll see you in the next one.